Hi, this is Emmet. Just a quick heads up before we dive into our next episode today. Myself and Mikael are recording a live session of the Handstandcast on Tuesday the 5th of May on Zoom. The live recording will be accessible to anyone training our Handstand Factory online programs and will fit the first 100 people to join the session. The link will be posted in our private subreddit for all Handstand Factory students. So if you're training one of our programs, be sure to join the forum until then. For those of you that just enjoy the podcast, don't worry, the live episode will air as usual on the Thursday following the recording. So hopefully see you on the forum soon. And now, just enjoy today's minisode. Hello and welcome back to another minisode with the Handstandcast from Handstand Factory. I am your host, or co-host, or multi-host, Emmet Lewis, and I'm here with my good buddy
Mikael Christiansen. Yeah, right. That's me. I forgot who I am.
Mikael is, if you know Mikael, he runs on coffee, and it's been a couple of hours before he had his last one, so he's running on fuel. But his mana bar needs to be recharged.
Wrecked. So is life.
What sort of magic card do we need to play for you?
What sort of magic card? Wrath of God.
Wrath of God.
It's a good one.
I have no idea what that is, but let's play it. Someone play it if you're listening.
Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. 2 white mana and 2 neutral.
It is true. He said in the last podcast he knows all Magic the Gathering cards.
No, not anymore. I used to, but that was way back before there were like 90 billion of them. However, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. So in this mini-sode, we are going to answer some of your questions. And our first question comes true. What's the benefit of training handstands?
So, let me blow your fucking minds by saying it'll teach you how to handstand. Tumbleweeds.
Boom. Mic drop. We're done. What's the benefit of training handstand? It's a cool fucking skill. Like, at the end of the day, it's just one of these things. It's like, it's almost infinitely rewarding, and there's a very clear reward for your persistence in it, and there's always something new to be found. It's interesting because if you want to go into the details, you can. If you want to not even worry on details or let them take care of themselves, but just work on like your artistic side, you can. You can earn money doing it once you get good at it.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Don't crush the circus dreams.
But yeah, it largely teaches you the skill itself. Sure, you can pull out your ass a few like other things that it'll help you with. I guess if your acrobatic practice requires handstand, such as let's say you're a gymnast or you dance breaking or you do capoeira or you do hand to hand and whatnot, like it will likely help you. But it's a rather specific skill, so like unless you tailor it to those disciplines as well, it'll not necessarily make you amazingly much better at it. But it's a very like kind of its own thing, and like you even like or it's not going to help you do that many other things except getting good at handstands, which is good enough in itself.
Yeah,
I guess.
it's kind of one of these things. You get to a stage, I suppose, in your training when you just train for the sake of training. You don't really question because you just do.
Yeah, it's
kind of
fun. I mean,
it's just what you do and you enjoy it.
It's like an interesting activity to spend between cradle and grave.
Yeah,
I guess that basically sums it up.
Got to kill time somehow.
Exactly.
Might as well do some handstands. Either that or like met.
Yeah, let's
your options. You
stay away from the meth
or met.
So how to balance hand balancing training with handstand push-up training. That is
quite straightforward one.
I kind of treat it as for me handstand push-ups is part of my hand balancing practice because I like to train all parts of being on my hands except Mexicans. But it entirely depends. Like some people will be able to be spectacular hand balancers and never have done a handstand push-up in their lives, and that's fine. But I think it's like a handstand push-up is like a specific strength move, and it can be like as long as let's say you do already have a hand balancing practice, meaning that like let's say you're actually ready to work on a proper freestanding handstand push-up, which means you have a handstand and some reasonable degree of control of it. Well, then you program your handstand push-ups in terms of like a progressive overload fashion. you make sure to train your technique before that. And
Yeah.
of course, you don't do handstand push-ups every single day. It's strength.
It's just like normal strength exercise twice a week. You know, somewhere between 3 to 10 work sets of whatever rep range you're working on. It's quite straightforward. The path to handstand push-up is very linear, I think, compared to most other skills. It's like, first you're able to do normal push-ups, maybe some dips. Then you're like, okay, I can do these pike ones, I can do the L, I can do eccentrics with the wall, I can do concentric with the eccentric with the wall. Then I would go back to the L, I suppose. The L handstand, that's a pike-shaped handstand push-up with your feet on something to reduce the weight. Get some more range of motion there, and then try freestanding. Try build it up from there. It's very straightforward. It just takes a bit of time. But it's also like, if you had a hand balance practice aiming for the one arm, you know, your handstand push-up would count as a bit of conditioning, whereas your practice might be an hour and a half of one arm training or drills leading to the one arm, that kind of thing. And then your push up training might be 20-30 minutes towards the end. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it's a nice skill to have, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, it doesn't really translate into hand balancing skill set. It'll help you to do certain like high end strength things, like croco to handstand to croco, and both of those moves on one arm. They're like handstand push-ups will help you, but they won't really help most of the hand balancing vocabulary, I would say.
Yeah,
but good skill to learn. So if you like that kind of thing, get on it.
Yeah, it's also one of those things, like, if you intend on working towards the higher levels of handstands, it's going to take you a long time. You might as well get it along the way.
Exactly.
It's like Pokemon. Got to catch them all. Cool. Next question. In tuck and straddle, my butt sticks out and I have some curve in the lumbar. Am I a bad person?
Short answer is yes. Long question is yes. And you deserve like a house made of poo and fire next to Sauron's tower on Gorgoroth. The end. No, first of all, most people have an ass. Like, if you are an actual person, you likely have a hip.
If you're one of these female identifying people,
yeah, that like there might be a butt involved.
Yeah,
and like, just since you have hips, and if you are working on, any person, like regardless, if you're working on things like, for example, tuck, straddle. Then your hips will likely be behind you, and your feet will be in front to some degree, at least in tuck. Straddle not necessarily, unless you are, or it will if you have some degree of piking in the hips. But
it's also the curve in the lower back. It's if you tuned in for the tuck life episode, or if you tune into it, you'll see we talk about this a bit more, about why you might end up curving just to do with shoulder positioning. So there's a lot more in depth there. But the short answer is, like, it comes down to a choice. Are you choosing to put the lumbar, or is that your only way to solve the problem of tuck handstand or straddle?
Yeah. And also
these are things to solve, I think.
Yeah, and like as you're straddling, if you don't have a 180 degree perfectly flat split, your feet will go slightly in front of your body, and it's not a problem that your hip is then a little bit over on the other side. As I said, like, there's weight in the feet, there's weight in the hips, so by the fact that you have a hip joint and have legs, like, these two will have to counterbalance each other to some degree or other. What you should be looking for, however, is if your shoulder is creating compensations patterns in regards to this, because you will see even the best hand balancers, if you see them from the side on one arm, you'd most of the time see the feet being slightly in front of the body, the butt being slightly on the other side. But if you would trace the line from hand to hip, that would be intact. While if this slight piking of the hip that the straddle and the tuck cause, if that causes the shoulder to move forwards, then you might have compensation patterns that you should be looking into solving. Or if this the same concept of the hip forces you to shift your shoulders kind of behind your hands into like a micro Mexican. These things you should keep a lookout for. But otherwise, like, no, it doesn't make as large of a difference as it might seem.
Yeah. Next question. When would you, I suppose this is for me, when would you advise for against oversplits, and how would you train them middle? So It's it's one of these things. I'm pretty convinced that most people can get significantly flat in a middle split. What I'm completely not convinced on, and I have my reasons for it, and I know other flexibility coaches would argue, but I think I can beat them with my reasons, is not everyone's hip structure is the same. And you will see this in some people that they will basically always have a bit of a gap if we were in a middle split without converting it into a super wide straddle. Now, I am very confident that I could put anyone I would chose to, even Mikael, completely flat into a middle split. He is actually more flexible, but like anyone completely flat into middle split, crotch to the floor. What I am wary of and what I would caution to be careful of is you get to a certain point where we max out what the muscles can lengthen or the thing. Then we start putting bone, ligaments and joint capsules under a load. And we are uncertain about how they actually adapt long term to middle split training. And you see this if you go into dance science. Dance science is a very interesting discipline because we see that there is an injury epidemic of labral tears in the dance world. And it is, speaking to a couple of physios and my own opinion on this, it is linked directly with the overemphasis of completely flat middle split, particularly at the angles. It's just one of those things, like you're always going to be able to get, for most people on the bell curve, you're always going to be able to get your inner thighs basically flat on the floor. What happens is, would you be able to get it all flat and all down? That's kind of down to your parents, who your parents were and your genetics. I have a version of the hip scour test. I do a modified hip scour test to actually test this, and I can tell whether you can do an oversplit or not, or whether I'd let you train it. It's a tricky test if you're not there. In general, like it's also one of these things. Do you really need an over middle split? Like it's one of these things you really have to ask yourself. Like if someone came to me and said, like, I'm about to get $1 million a year contract with Cirque du Soleil, but I need an over middle split, boom, let's do it, and then we'll deal with any issues when your career is over. If you do this as a hobby, like I know people who are performing at the highest level. I know people who are in Cirque actually who don't have a flat middle split, and they're pretty good. I know people who are all around the circus world and they don't have flat, and they have god tier oversplits and a front split, super bridges, all this kind of stuff. It's also, if you look at a lot of middle splits, you'll see a lot of people get a lateral deviation of the kneecap to actually get the flat shape. So it becomes a bit bananaed on the leg shape. And I'm also, it's kind of like pushing the knee into valgus, I suppose, but just from a different thing. I'm also against that. So I get your split, get that nice and comfortable, then worry about the over split. It can be a bit beneficial to do some oversplit like drills just to help loosen things out, but it's not for everyone. It's kind of like it's depends on your bone structure and the joints, what's going on inside, and unless you get things imaged, we can't really tell. We can take some guesses, but a labral tear can be a nasty thing, and if you could avoid that and mean your split is 3 centimeters off the ground and not flat, maybe it's a better thing. But personal choice and all this. Next question.
So a next question: how to prioritize goals after being comfortable with tuck, straddle, and diamond 2-arm? If you're comfortable with that, if you can stay up for a reasonable amount of time, and meaning 30 plus seconds consistently, your kick up is good. Then, like the first questions I would ask is like, it would depend slightly on your alignment and how comfortable that is, but can you tuck jump to handstand? Can you straddle jump to handstand? Maybe can you cartwheel into a handstand? So that you challenge it in various ways, and then if these kind of get-ups are at least doable to some degree, start working on pressing, because if you have the straddle, if you have the tuck, it means that you are able to move in space to some degree. Then you can start moving downwards, beginning to build a negative press. Tons of different exercises for developing that further, but essentially using that capacity that you have of the open leg position, the straddle and the tuck, and you start developing range with that, so that you're building towards your press to handstand. I think that is basically the kind of general thing that you can or the thing you'd get the most out of, I think.
The other stuff to start looking at is once you can do the shapes by themselves, is to start linking them, start playing around, like, what order, like even just with those three shapes, like what order could I do them? Could I pick a random order? Could I go tuck, straddle, diamond, straight, straddle, tuck? These kind of things are just learning to play with. It's not just like it's making the shape your own, but making the shape your own from every angle, so you can enter and exit in the way that you choose. So there's a lot of things there. It's one of those things people get stuck on. It has to, like, there's only 4 things to do, or there's only 5 things to do. There's almost infinite variety of things to do. We cover a lot of this in Keep Pushing, but a lot of it just comes into play. Just like think outside the box. Think, what have I not seen before? Then try that and see if it works for you.
Then next one.
How to translate the flexibility of a passive pancake to the active flexibility needed for the negative press.
Do a negative press.
Do a negative press is one of the
to a large degree.
Yeah, it's also sorry to jump in here. Is one, like, work your compression work. A simple thing to try, like, there's fancy techniques you can do, but just lifting your legs off the ground in a pancake is very effective. It's worked a very long time. There's more advanced isometric techniques and other stuff to apply. But it's also just like, what can help is if you do some of the compression work before you do your negative press, just to get the sensation of this is what it feels like when these muscles turn on. Then when you go upside down, try to actively pull the legs down and select a target. So for me, like I say, when I'm doing straddle press or when I'm doing a negative or anything like that, I'm thinking about, I can see my wrists and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, pull your legs to your wrists. Just like you can close your eyes and find your nose, you can get your legs that way, and that will cue the activation and that kind of thing. So there's a few ways to think about it.
Yeah.
The other way is, it's like, stay active in the position. Like, start early when you feel you can control it and the shape is easy. Then as it gets heavier, you'll be kind of guiding it into the line rather than just passively falling under gravity.
Yeah, and it's one thing that you need to think about, like, because you want to be using this flexibility for a press, and not then in the beginning likely a negative press. So you need to start working on negative press. That is practically the only way that you can apply it directly. And the best advice I have there is just try to absolutely crunch your legs towards your body. Like, if it feels like your entire midsection is a towel that's being twisted, yay you're kind of doing it correctly. There's very often this like very powerful sensation in your abdomen as you pull the legs down in the beginning. Some people feel it in the low back, some people feel it in the upper back, depending a little bit on your body. But essentially, you can do all of the leg lifts in the world hanging from a bar and not be able to do a press down as long as you're not conditioning this piece together. Because as we mentioned in which episode was it? I can't even remember. But we talked about that before, at least, that compression is a two or like a concept that requires two forces, two opposing forces. And in the press to handstand, that will be the shoulders. So as you pull the legs towards your abdomen, your shoulders will start leaning forwards, and you'll need to resist that force going forwards. And what you will feel is that you will lower your legs perhaps slowly for 10, 15 centimeters or however long, and then it'll come to a point where everything will just suddenly collapse and you'll fall forwards, or your feet will just have to fall to the floor. This is not because you're not able to pull your legs closer to your body at that point. It's just that you reach the point where your shoulders either fatigue or just do not have the force required to keep your center of mass over your base of support, and then the legs just have to drop. So you will need to condition this specific movement, or else
it's that kind of thing. You see this a lot with people who already have a quite flat pancake, and they just don't actually have the upper back strength to resist the compression they're doing at the hips.
Classic.
It's classic. The face goes forward, taking a hop.
Boom.
I'm just going to leave you guys with one compression exercise to try, which is loads of fun, but don't hate me. You're going to sit down on your pancake. You can do it in a pike as well. You're going to put a weight across your shin or hold it in position, and you're going to use this to lift up as hard as you can against it. At the same time, you're going to pull forward with the abs. You're not going to rock backwards. So you're getting this two-directional force from the abs and from the hip flexors. You're going to do that for about 10-15 seconds. You're going to do the other side for 10-15 seconds. And then you're going to lift the legs up and down for compression, keeping the toes pointed, keeping your knees locked as your measure of progress. You're going to hold every rep for about 2 seconds. And you can thank me later, and you can curse me out as well. It will give you a lot of cramps, but it will give you a taste of some of the stuff we teach in the press program to develop compression as fast as possible. So we are going to wrap up that mini-sode here. Thank you for tuning into our little mini-sode. If you have some more questions you would like to address us, you can go to handstandfactory.com and use the contact form and use the title podcast questions and send them in. You can also send them to us on social media. On Instagram, you can find me under Emmet Lewis, you can find Mikael under Mikael Balancing, and you can find us on Handstand Factory as well. And if you're interested in learning and putting all of these concepts together, we do have the programs available on Handstand Factory which keep this podcast running. So check them out. And other than that, thanks for tuning in.